Appreciate everyone coming today and making the time to attend. I know we open this up to the public, so hopefully there are some of you newer faces out there that will be with us here tonight. So thanks for coming. Each night we have, or each month, we have a specific topic, and the topic this month is early warning systems. So something we wanted to get that word out to the entire community. So thanks to all of you who are attending. I'm Scott Beasley, chair of the coalition, and have a great supporting cast for you tonight. So agenda for tonight, we'll have some monthly reminders. Those of you who are regulars, don't worry, I don't think we're going to go through this every month. Maybe we'll call this the last time for a little while. And then we're going to have a monthly resource spotlight, again, focused on early warning, and a document that's available out there in the community for you on our website. Susan Rogers from our steering committee will be sharing that. Some community partner reports, and then the monthly education spotlight. We have a number of great neighborhoods presenting tonight, what they have done right in their own backyard. And then if we have some time, we will have our community forum. So to get into some of these reminders, please sign up for Code Red. You can find it on mynevadacounty.com. Click under Wildfire Preparedness. If you have a smaller monitor like my little laptop, you're going to have to scroll down to find those bottom options. And then under Emergency Alerts, clicking on Optimize Code Red and sign up from there. Please also bookmark the Ready Nevada County dashboard. That is under the Go section of the mynevadacounty.com Ready Nevada County section. And this is where you can find all of the details you would need in an evacuation, as well as some early warning things. We got Paul Cummings directly from OES, the Office of Emergency Services, talking tonight. And then, Scout, you're out. Please find your evacuation routes before you need them. Snow is starting to melt there up in the Highway 20 corridor. Almost safe to take some of those more back road routes, and make sure you know what those things look like before you need them. And then find your 5 emergency allies. Excuse me, this is 5 people, both in and outside of the community, that you can lean on in the event of an emergency. So with that, I am going to hand off to Susan Rogers to share our monthly resource. So Susan, the floor is yours.
Maybe not.
Susan, you're still muted. We can definitely see your screen.
Sorry about that. Okay. We decided to start a feature of Resource of the Month to resurface some of the things we have on your website that it's too easy to forget about. And one of them is completely updated and newly dated today, as you'll see right here, the early warning alerts, a one-pager that tells you where to find weather advisories, sign up in advance for the alerts, and during an actual emergency, how to stay updated and informed. I suggest you print it and post it on your refrigerator. If you click this is something everybody here who is a Firewise community representative, please send this link out to your email list so people know that this sheet of paper exists, and they can print it and post it on their refrigerator. So we've revised this slightly with the help of Jen and Paul at OES, and we have one weather advisory link here. Here's where you get your PG&E shutoffs. You can sign up to get alerts from PG&E. This is where you sign up for Code Red. Click on that link. If you're up in Truckee, click on that link. They have a different system for their emergency alerts. And here's a little link about Find Your 5. And a note that you can use the Ready Nevada County dashboard down here in the 4th bullet point to learn your evacuation zone number And I'm going to save mine in my cell phone. I just did it today. I made a new contact and it was called evacuation. And then the last name was zone. And then in the notes part, I put my evacuation zone number, which I got from the dashboard. And this has been newly launched in the last couple of days, and we'll have a whole meeting on it soon. But once you learn your evacuation zone number, I suggest you save it to your cell phone. I have it in 3 different places on my cell phone, also in the notes under my own name and that sort of thing. So then these, when there's an actual emergency and you're thinking, how in the heck do I figure out like what exactly is happening now? These are all the things that you do to stay informed during an emergency. And it's easy for rumors and misinformation. You don't want to go to Nevada County Peeps or some random Facebook page or anything like that. You should be looking at the official sites and the people who really know what's going on. And all of these things will give you good information. I used to be somebody who said, I'm not a Twitter user. I see no reason to use Twitter. I don't want to use it. I'm not that kind of person. Until the Jones fire last year, when I saw from the dashboard, looking at the county dashboard, that the Twitter really is the fastest way that stuff seems to come out. And then it makes it way quickly to Facebook and the other things. So I had a Twitter account, which I wasn't using. And so I went there and I signed up for all the feeds that you see right here in the third from the end bullet. So, so that I can keep that up to date and be watching that on my phone, especially if you have to evacuate. So this is a little disclaimer at the bottom, educational purposes only. And but we highly recommend this. And if you're a rep of a Firewise community, please do ensure that your members are all aware of this so that they can print it out for their own use at home. And I'll turn it back to you, Scott.
Thanks so much, Susan. Good stuff and a whole lot of stuff there. So if that is, if you're sitting there watching tonight and it's your first time seeing that document, please go check that out and review it at your own speed and take some of those points Susan made to heart, as we are in fire season and they are all very relevant.
Scott, I think I forgot to say, I'm sorry, I think I forgot to say, it's when you hit our website, you look on the sidebar on the left, educational resources, and that's where it is under educational resources.
Cool. Thanks for addressing that. That was there was a question in the chat about that very topic, where to find that. Great. So moving on to our partner reports. I think I saw Chief Matthias somewhere in the crowd here. Are you out there?
I'm here. Yep, I'm here. And you know, Susan, that's a great information about that the Twitter feeds and everything. As a matter of fact, I joined up and I heard about that new restaurant Karma. Have you heard about that? The new restaurant Karma. It doesn't have a menu. You get what you deserve.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. I'm just here to help. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the fire season that we're getting ready to get into, or shall I say that we are deep into it right now. So if we compare this time to last year at this time, last year we had 80 wildland fires in the Nevada Evil Placer unit. So far this year we've had 101. And of that 101, about 30% of them are spotting out in front of them already, which is really unheard of at this time. So what that means is our activity is up, our acreage is up. We're getting fires starting more often, and they're spreading more rapidly. So to that end, we have required burn permits on May 1st. So hopefully everybody's paid attention to burn permits. You have your burn permit that you got online after you took your short class video, and you've printed out that burn permit. You're following the rules. You're calling to make sure it's a burn day, and you've signed that permit that you printed out. So all those things are just a good reminder of what to do. In this time of year, we certainly want you to continue clearing your property, but we've been in a red flag warning for the last couple of days, and it's been extended out a couple of days just because of the wind that we've been having and how dry it is. So What we want to encourage you to do is clear your property, but do it the right way. It's just too dry already to start using anything with a metal blade, especially in the afternoon and anything that gets direct sunlight. We don't want everybody to do the right thing the wrong way and have problems caused from that. So if you must clear your property, do it on non-windy days. Try not to use internal combustion engines, and don't use, like I said, anything with metal blades in direct sunlight. It's just the fire's any spark is going to catch a fire and it's going to spread rapidly. Our fuel moistures are the lowest that we've ever recorded. And so what that means is that all the fuel that normally has water in it does not have as much as it normally has. We've never, in all of CAL FIRE's history, if I look at my patch, it says since 1885, we've been keeping those records. And we have never seen fuel moistures this low this time of year. So we are into July to August conditions at this time of year. And the snowpack, if you've been up in the Sierra, is not producing anything. Really, the thing that kind of hits home for me is this time of year, I'm used to walking out to my car and seeing a little bit of dew on the windshield. Over the winter time, I don't know how many times you had to sit there and defrost your window before you could go out, but it wasn't very many. So what that means is there is not that much moisture out there. So very dangerous stuff right now. We don't know when we're going to suspend burning. We're trying to stay with our partner neighbors to the north, and to the south, and east and west, and surround us, and go at the same time. I think it could get cut off at any time. It's just, to me, it's a very dangerous year, and my recommendation is to implement the burn ban as soon as possible. But I'm moderated by my boss, who also wants us to reduce fuels too. We just want to do it safely in those 4-foot piles. So just call and make sure it's a burn day. There are some burn restrictions, and we will implement those a little bit early and often, knowing what our fuel moisture is at. So our staffing is going to increase at the very latest on May 17th. We're going to increase the number of firefighters that we have and the number of engines available. I hear rumors yesterday and today that are starting to get more frequent that we may be staffing up all of our stations as early as Monday. So that is a possibility. It's just coming really rapidly because we're getting multiple incidents. Right now, as I speak to you, you'll hear sirens in the background. They're responding to medical aids. There's a control burn right up the street, and there's a commercial structure fire in downtown Grass Valley. So it's just that time of year that things are a little bit crazy. Tomorrow is our readiness drill up at the Rita Ranch property near North San Juan and that area. So we will be testing all of our fire crews. We only have 5 fire crews available in the Nevada-Yuba Placer. Normally we'd have 7 to 8. Our crew numbers are down because the CDCR population is down. And as a matter of fact, they found out that Susanville detention center or prison is closing, and that's one of the main feeders into our fire crew program. So that'll be closed at this time next year at the latest, and they think that they want to close it sooner than that. So that will really reduce our crew numbers even more than we're at. But tomorrow we'll be testing the crews that we do have to make sure that they're competent and can handle what's going on. As far as defensible space inspectors, we've hired all of them. They're out and about doing their inspections. Our focus for Nevada County is going to kind of be the Dog Bar Road, South Nevada County area. That's our focus. That's not the only place that we're going to inspect. So that's where our focus is. And there you go. That's what I have to report, unless there's any questions.
That's a lot happening, and we appreciate you giving the CAL FIRE update and for picking up the slack for Bob's jokes. And I won't take it personal. The only thing available for me here in the Karma Cafe is a glass of lukewarm water. So
you got what you deserve. Good for you.
Yeah. I think I'll just go home and meditate on that for a little bit. All right. Up next, Nevada County Consolidated Fire. I think Patrick Mason, you out there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening. So I want to touch a little bit on back at the beginning of the meeting, we talked about know your route. I've been getting quite a few phone calls over the last couple of weeks about individuals looking at their routes and finding their secondary, third, however many accesses they can get out of their area. Number one, unfortunately, I don't have the ability to make private landowners open their property for escape routes. That's something that's an agreement between neighbors. So I highly suggest if you guys are looking at escape routes and it has to go through somebody else's property to get out, and speak with those neighbors and explain to them that only on an emergency need will this be used, but get that agreement set beforehand. Because I personally, I can't come out and enforce that in any way. The OES DSI inspectors that we got, we are fully staffed again. And we tagged on to CAL FIRE, and they came up Dog Bar area up to Alta Sierra and across. And we tagged on to them, and we came up the Woodpecker Ravine up into the bottom side of the Ophir Hill Fire District and Paradale Chicago Park Fire District. And worked that all the way up to Highway 174. And now we have them working over off of North Bloomfield, Lake Vera Purdon, coming out of the River Canyon back into Nevada City. So making a lot of progress with them, and with the coordination with the CAL FIRE DSI inspectors, we're covering a lot of ground. That's pretty much what I have.
Cool, thanks so much. I'd add on to that, search and rescue has had a really busy year. We're not searching for anybody, we're just rescuing, and there's a lot of people with fancy new vehicles they've purchased in the pandemic, and they're getting stuck. So again, just because there's a road on a map doesn't mean that road exists. So to piggyback on what Patrick was saying there, if you find yourself going somewhere and it looks like a bad idea, it probably is. So X that off your escape route and turn around. We have pulled a motorcycle off of Burlington Ridge, a brand spanking new Jeep Rubicon off of Relief Hill. I've been on both sides of Lowell Hill, coming in from 20 and 49. One for some kind of SUV crossover up top. It was for like the other, like more of an expedition. So I'm not saying that to those of you Honda Civic drivers out there. I'm saying that to everybody. If you're scouting your route and it looks like a bad idea, please turn around. Love volunteering for the community, but don't want your face to be featured in this next meeting of the bad idea scout your route plan. So just be safe out there. All right, next, representing the OES, Office of Emergency Services, Paul Cummings.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Cummings. I'm the Nevada County Office of Emergency Services Program Manager. And Scott, did you want me to give an OES update and then roll right into my Code Red overview, or did you want to save the Code Red overview for later after the update?
Punt Code Red until later. We'll tee you up in about half an hour.
Perfect. Okay, so for the OES update, just in general, I'd like to piggyback on what Deputy Fire Marshal Patrick Mason said around the considerations for folks coming to him, and a lot of you are probably considering your evac routes. You know, that what Lieutenant Jacobs always tells folks is, you know, evacuate early and evacuate often. So get out early. The biggest thing to pass along to folks, I think, if you're concerned about, I only have one way in or one way out, and I want to use this other potential crazy, you know, shortcut. I know you don't always have the information about the fire and things happen quickly, but if you can, try to create as many safety nets as possible. And I think that's the theme for tonight with the document that Susan put forward, to stay as aware as you can, especially on those fire weather days where we have fire weather watches and red flags, so that the time required from when you sense danger, whether that be smelling smoke, seeing smoke, or a neighbor knocking on your door, you get a code red, until you're leaving, that you don't have to use those very extreme measures of cutting through some rough road. So anyway, I just wanted to start off with that. Get out early, that's really important. I do want to mention Zonehaven is now live. We did send out a press release for that. Some of you have probably seen that on social media and on the Union. What we really want to get through to folks, you know, I'll share with you, is that we have a few bugs that we're working out, but the key thing for you to take away right now is to just know your zone, just like Susan said. Just know what zone that you live in, right? Know what zone. I have kids. I know the zone that my kid's school is in, where I work, and then where I live. Those are all important to me. So you're going to have to know multiple zones depending on your situation. And that'll come in later on with the presentation around Code Red and the iPod system, that we'll be putting those zones in your messages. You'll be hearing about them on the radio from KVMR and our other trusted news sources. So it's important. Most important takeaway is just to know your zone. OES did put together a 12-minute video. Some of you, I think, may have seen that. I think we had some media around that. We can put that into the chat later on as well. But that was a really effective tool that we had professionally made with some of our partners, with CAL FIRE, the Sheriff's Office, Freed, to go over really all the basic stuff that we're trying to hit when we're at a lot of these meetings: high-low sirens, evac tags, defensible space, Code Red. That 12-minute video captures all of that. So please tell your friends, share that video with your neighbors and your families. It's a really important tool this time of year for folks to watch, and I think it'll help recage people for this wildfire season. So last year, some of you should have received in the unincorporated part of the county, a defensible space inspector letter. That was just a letter that went out to the public saying, hey, we want to remind you that there is a county defensible space ordinance. And this is a little bit of what that's about. It included the defensible space inspector checklist. So that'll be going out again. That should be hitting mailboxes this week, no later than early next week. And that's just a reminder for folks to do that defensible space work. But as Chief Matthias said, we have to do that carefully, balancing that with the fire threat and the tools that we're using. So again, this is the time of year for all of us as residents and for us to tell our friends and neighbors to get ready. We are in that ready phase of ready, set, go. And this letter will just help reinforce that. The Ready, Set, Go handbook that many of you have, it's really the one-stop shop that you can have in your hand for readiness around wildfire in our community. The 2021 version of that will be going out and should be hitting mailboxes in about 2 weeks. So watch for that. Don't let that get thrown away with some of the other junk mail. Everyone in the county, incorporated and in unincorporated, whether you're in Truckee, Nevada City, Grass Valley, Penn Valley, it's going to everybody. So if you don't get one for some reason, please reach out to our office. You could probably also get with your Firewise community, and we can make sure that you get those handbooks. They're very effective. Green waste events. So in the handbook, there's information about that. You can also go to our website, and I can also drop it in the chat. But we have green waste events coming up this year. We're very thankful for our partners with the Fire Safe Council. A little bit of funding still carrying over from the Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District last year. And then, the county's picking up the difference. So we're going to have in Western Nevada County 2 events, May 21st through the 24th, and then June 11th through the 14th. There's 3 weekends up in Truckee at the fairgrounds. Oh, and sorry, down here on the western end, it's only going to be at 1 location this year, whereas it was 3 last year. So it'll be 12625 Brunswick Road, Grass Valley. And then there'll also be a mulch pickup opportunity for that. So again, I can drop that in the chat once this is over with. I do want to say to our fire friends on, happy International Firefighters Day. So this is International Firefighters Day. And the 1st of May was Wildfire Preparedness Day. I think I skipped over that. We did go out and talk to a couple communities. We were out with Deer Creek Park and Lake Wildwood for that. And I'm sure many of you also met. And so if you want to have our office come out, we can bring our lead defensible space inspector, and Lieutenant Jacobs and I, or Jen Tamo, can come out and just talk about really any topics you want us to focus on. But with us starting to come out of COVID, we're still keeping to COVID restrictions, but we did do this in-person event with COVID restrictions, and it went really well. So please let us know if you'd like us to support you that way. And then lastly, I think it's already been mentioned, the fire weather's here. We had a fire weather watch that got upgraded to a red flag warning. So just be thinking about what are you and your family going to do on those days that we have that fire weather, and it's here. So I'll pause there, Scott, and I can take questions in the chat, and then I'll come back on for my Code Red presentation.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. There's a question in the chat. How do we sign up to volunteer for the Green Waste Days?
Yeah, thank you. And we got that question via email as well. And I've routed that to the Fire Safe Council, and they are going to get back with me on that procedure. And what will likely happen is we will share it through the coalition, and we can also post it to our social media. So I'm very thankful that there's volunteers. We'll get you more here soon.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Paul. We'll hopefully have you around for the community forum later in this meeting. Fire Safe Council of Nevada County. I think I saw Don and Pat. Are either of you here today to share some things?
Yeah, I'll let Pat go ahead and do it.
That's a pro move for a board chair right there.
Yeah.
Pro move.
Thank you, Don. That's very kind of you. I'm just on cell phone today because of the internet issues. So what I wanted everyone of the coalition to know that if you have an action plan for your Firewise community that is going to be due this year, I'd like to focus on that this month of May. And there are many in training Firewise communities that haven't actually created their action plans yet, and it's holding up your being certified by NFPA. We need to have those in place because CAL FIRE is who reviews your documents and agrees that you have everything in place to be a Firewise community. So let's do right by CAL FIRE that does so much for us and get those plans done this month. I'm focused on it. I'll help you all I can, but it must come from the communities because you're the ones that are going to be agreeing for your goals. So thank you very much. You know how to get a hold of me at the Fire Safe Council. I get a lot of phone calls, and I'll put the number in the chat if I can figure it out on my cell phone. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Pat. We appreciate it. All right. We are moving on to the next piece of our meeting tonight, our monthly education spotlight. And the context here is within the mission of this organization. So the coalition promotes fire safety through advocacy, education, and community involvement with other stakeholders interested in working towards stronger fire safe practices. So that's you, all the stakeholders out there in the community. And specifically, we have a lot of the captains of those Firewise communities here with us today. Our first, so what we have about 5 speakers, and we're going to start with kind of the most simple system out there. So under the category of early warning systems, the first one is really just a kind of a buddy system coming from Lake Wildwood. So I'm gonna ask Natalia Corich to unmute her screen. So if you wake up your mouse, you should be able to see there. Hey, Natalia.
Okay, hi. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm so impressed with all you guys, what you're working so hard for our community. And so, in line with that, what Scott said, I want to know you to know how Wildwood has been quite active in having big meetings for everybody to hear all the things like you're saying to all of the community. Well attended, well done. Then 2 years ago, after we went to one of those, our particular street had a neighborhood meeting, and it was quite well attended and very organized and had handouts, and questions and fears were addressed. And also we were told to break into smaller groups. So after that, I was in a smaller group, and we all decided that we really needed to see each other's home, and we all like food. So we had a progressive dinner and went to each home and showed each other where the key was and showed each other where the pet needs were for the leashes and all of that. And it really made me feel much better. Myself, and it turned out 2 other people on my street that were in this pod. Well, we didn't call ourselves fire safety because we didn't like that word. It was scary. So we called ourselves safety pod. So my safety pod had 3 of us who are like me, deaf, without hearing aids, who can't sleep with our hearing aids because they make noise. So we all had ways to talk about when they came to my house. I showed them where I slept and that they'd have to pound on the window. I also, I've learned that I can have an iWatch, an iPad watch, or whatever it's called, Apple Watch, and it will vibrate for me and shoot me out. And that's helpful. I feel like so many people in this neighborhood got together and had ideas of specific things that they would need and that they were worried and concerned about. So I have to say that after that, we became a lot better friends and know each other. And I feel like I'm ready, set, go. Although I've made a list, I don't know my zone and some of the other things that I'm really glad that I'm involved in this evening.
That's fantastic. So thank you for sharing your story there in Lake Wildwood, Natalia. Big things I took away from that are, quite honestly, just the simplicity and effectiveness. So you guys got together for basically a progressive potluck, and then ideas came out of that of what everyone needed. Is that kind of the gist of how that happened?
We added some things to it as it went on, that to text each other when we're out of town, to show each other where the things would be stored that needed to be grabbed if there were time and we were out of town. So it feels good. I mean, it's scary, but it feels good.
That's fantastic. So, well, thanks so much for sharing your story here. We hope you stick around in case anyone has questions for you about the setup you have there in Lake Wildwood. Fun fact, I know Natalia, she made my wedding ring, and for the fire people, search and rescue, and otherwise backcountry dorks, she actually made my wedding ring with a topographical map on the face of it of where with the world's smallest diamond of where I proposed to my wife. So that's how I know Natalia. Good deal. Well, thanks again for being here, Natalia. We really appreciate it, and hope you stick around later. Up next, so we're gonna go from, again, the most simple idea of, hey, have a potluck and find out what you and your neighbors need. With increasing complexity, we're gonna move on to some different neighborhood ideas. So up next, we have Richard Bannister. So if you could unmute your line, you're gonna go up next on the Jordan Street, which is just outside of Nevada City. So it's technically the Deer Creek South Side community, and there's a bit of a subgroup in there that represents Jordan Street. So that is, again, right just outside of Nevada City. So Richard, are you with us?
I am. Can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
Good. So I'm going to be talking about a system of radios that everyone at my end of Jordan Street has, every resident has. You know, it was the campfire in 2018 that made us realize how bad our situation was on Jordan Street. You know, we all saw those scenes of evacuees fleeing paradise with trees and brush burning at either side of the road. And we realized if that were to happen on Jordan Street, things would go very badly. You know, there was a lot of brush on the sides of the street. I'll just digress for 10 seconds onto that. That, you know, almost touched in places over the road. And for those of you that don't know, Jordan Street is single lane for most of its length. And to make matters worse, it dead ends at the water treatment plant. So there's only one way out. So plus we had the age of residents, the average age of residents is probably north of 60 years. So our first streetwide effort in 2019 after the campfire was to do a lot of clearing along the sides of what would be our evacuation route. Then in the spring of 2020, Jonathan Price, who's actually moved out of the area, He raised the idea of buddy radios, and most of the work organizing and distributing them was down to him. So every resident has one at our end. Even the one or two who were initially resistant came around to the idea when we pointed out that people could get trapped if they didn't evacuate quickly. So we have 17 residents, 17 families, households that have a radio. And Jonathan documented the instructions which ask people to turn on the radios at least at night when there are announced high fire risk periods. You know, the instructions also told folk how to use the radios, keep transmission short, not talk over one another. And we tested the system a couple of times. The method of testing was to send an email out to everyone saying, you know, at 5 o'clock on such a day, we're having a test. And then one person, the leader, would try and raise every single person on the group. Then in August, we got our first real test of the system. The street was evacuated because of the Jones fire. And I have to say, overall, it worked really well. Maybe not exactly as I thought it might. Not everyone heeded the first radio calls. I would say a big majority of everyone, when we found out we were going to have to evacuate, a big majority of people answered the radio. So a large enough group of us did, it allowed us to say, who are we missing? And so we were able to allocate, you know, one of the people who answered to go look for the people who didn't answer and make sure they got out okay. And, you know, to that extent, it worked really well. For someone to be able to say, we had conversations about who was turning the gas off at my house, and I could talk to someone, and Jonathan said, oh, I'm coming over to turn the gas off at your house. And I talked to someone else, we haven't heard from so-and-so, well, I'll go over there and see what's going on with them. Some of the more able, so we got everyone out in I think, a fairly short order. Some of the more able-bodied residents stayed until every last person had left. So we did I think we did a really good community job of making sure everyone got out. I would recommend the system. The radio we use, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to see this, but we use these little ARC shell AR5 now receivers. You just press the talk and you can easily hear from one end of Jordan Street to the other. We program the radios so that they only receive and transmit on permissible frequencies of the family radio service and the approved transmission power limitations. We kind of use channel 4. I don't know if that's of any interest to anyone. Jonathan created this massive documentation, and don't look at it negatively, a massive documentation. If anyone else were going to set up a system like this, I think they'd do well to actually look at the documentation that we've generated. And I can put that up on Google Drive if anyone wants to use that as a basis for their own system. Secondary to that, to the radios, we also have a group text system that anyone on the street can opt into. And any member can send a text. And so last year during red flag warnings, we had a lot of messages going out onto our phones about relating to evacuation, red flag warnings, etc. You know, if we can help anyone else, we will. I don't know if there are any questions.
Richard, there's a question.
There's a question in the chat. Could you repeat the?
Go ahead, Scott.
There's a question that the chat. Could you say the name of that unit again?
Yeah, it's by a company called ArcShell, ARCSHELL. You can buy them on Amazon for about $12 each. like I say, we do reprogram them. So that was a lot of Jonathan's work, and I know that it's for the reasons we said, so that it's just restricted. The frequencies, I think, are wide open until we restricted them to the family radio service, and we made sure that the power was as high as it could go within the approved power limitations. So I can explain to anyone how to do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Richard. You said that the first time you were really tested as a neighborhood was the Jones fire, but I've heard you actually did do some dry rehearsals, and did you not?
Right, those were the tests of the system that I was referring to. We did those 2 or 3 times before that, when we sent an email out to everyone and said, you know, at this particular time we'll be. We didn't really want to surprise people, but just getting people using the system, saying we're going to test it on this particular time, made everyone make sure that their unit was charged up properly and we could address problems with people that weren't able to respond.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I really appreciate the work that you've done out there. There's a couple of links in the chat for those of you that are interested for those radios. I just Googled it and had it hit 20, maybe 40 different ways. So they're definitely out there and relatively easy to use. And there are radios out there that wouldn't require much, if any, reprogramming. So don't let that intimidate you if the story appealed to you at all. So Richard, the key takeaways I had from your group was, you know, you had a text message chain going.
Right.
Between that and the radios, you checked in on each other to see who was around, and that you didn't wait until emergency hit. That again, it was rehearsed and role played and fairly well scripted for your neighborhood. So any other, you know, any big points you'd like to reemphasize before we?
Well, I think just the idea that you know, the people who do respond, if you've got a body of people that respond, they can take care of anyone who doesn't respond. You know, we have a list of everyone, and they did do that. It wasn't, the radio had enabled us to not have everyone go over to one person's house. We could say, hey, Joe, can you go over to the Smith's house? And etc. Yeah.
No, that's good stuff, Richard. We appreciate that, and you know, as much confidence as I have in, you know, fire, law, OES, and everyone, you know, these stories are really great, and that they're neighbors taking care of neighbors, because there is time when technology fails, and we need each other, and we really appreciate what you're doing there on Jordan Street. So thanks for being here tonight and being with us.
Welcome.
So up next, I'm going to ask Louise Jones to join us, and I'll pull our map up here again. So Louise is up on Washington Ridge, which is different than our next speaker, in the little town of Washington, which is different than where I live in the Washington Hill district. So to clear up all the Washington confusion, back here to our map, if we head up the hill from Grass Valley in Nevada City, you know, Scotts Flat way down the hill on your right, you've got, you know, the old 5 Mile House and the convenience store up here. We have Washington Hill, or sorry, shoot, I can't even get it right, and I live there. Washington Ridge and the Lightening Tree Road community. So unique challenges there. I'll let Louise explain. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Louise to share. I know you've got some good stuff for us tonight. Louise, you are muted, so you are not muted on Zoom. Is it possible your phone mute is pushed? Louise, we got lips, but you're not moving. So whatever you've used, if you called in on your phone, or if you like dialed in on your phone, or if you use your computer, make sure you got a mic that is hooked up. All right, I think you just hit the mute button, so you're going to want to unmute that. Let's do this. So Louise, the button you just hit to unmute and mute yourself right there, there's a little caret, like that little up arrow. If you click on that, it'll pop open a screen that should give you some dial-in numbers that you can dial in on your phone if your computer mic is having issues. And then I am going to, we'll come back to you if you get that figured out.
Yeah, Scott, I wasn't.
There you are.
I wasn't there, and it seemed to have left my phone.
Well, you're loud and clear, whatever you're doing now, so don't touch a thing.
All right, let's try this then.
Perfect. We can see your PowerPoint. All right, so we've got presenter view there, Louise, so we can see your presentation and the notes in the right-hand column, if that's what you're trying to do. Again, the floor is yours, so go for it.
Okay, I was trying to get myself to flip the screens here, which I rehearsed, which I can't seem to do. So we'll have to do it this way. Lightning Tree, Scott just told you where it was on Washington Ridge. Actually, this system is greater than just Lightning Tree. This is North Cooper. Lightning Tree, incidentally, right before this meeting, just got notification from the National Fire Prevention Agency that we have been approved as a Firewise community. So we're in there. And yes, we're located on Washington Ridge, but this system is 2 ridges and 2 canyons. All right. So this is a night watch system, a fire watch system. And why did we take this on? When we started working on our fire safety as a community, we found that our residents wanted to plan for the worst case scenario first. And they had great concerns about a fire starting and expanding quickly within the neighborhood, especially at night. We also have the condition in our area that several are challenged with wireless communication. At home, they don't have internet or cell phone. And we had to come up with a system whereby we could contact everyone simultaneously and using a method that'll wake them up. So to facilitate, we talked about sirens, but that was only under the control of one household. We looked at phone trees, but that depended upon who was on duty, and it got very unwieldy. We looked at applications for multiple texts, voicemail, and so on. And we had questions as to whether that would wake everybody up simultaneously. So we went to a radio system. This is the proliferation of our radios. As you can see here, this is Lightning Tree Road right here as it connects. And the outer portion of Lightning Tree, which is here, is on top of Washington Ridge, while the lower portion of Lightning Tree traverses the side of Washington Ridge. So it's in a steep section. Also on top of Washington Ridge is the National Forest here and the Washington Ridge Conservation Camp, which is right here. Now, going diagonally down this map is Cooper Road, which is the bottom of Little Rock Creek Canyon. And on the other side is one more ridge between Washington Ridge and Yuba River Canyon called Sailor Flat Ridge. So we have a proliferation of radios here on Royal Plum, Burning Bush, and Blue Ridge Road, but none of these are at the top of that ridge. Going further up Cooper, there's Barn Hollow Road that goes to the highest point on Sailor Flat Ridge called Greencastle Peak. And we'll get to the importance of Greencastle Peak later in this presentation. So the radio system is a base unit, the Kenwood TKR 840, that we got from Banner Communications in Grass Valley. And the total cost of the unit, the service, the education, the parts to set it up was $1,475. The cost of which was shared by the charter members of this club. In other words, they divided up the cost to get into the system, and then each bought the BTEC GMRS V1 two-way radio for $75 each. Right now, you can get them on Amazon at $10 off. We went with Banner Communications because they serve the first responders in the area, so we felt we couldn't miss with that. Now, the Firewatch team is usually implemented during PSPS events, and currently we have 2 teams with 5 on each team. And when we go on watch, there are 5 time slots: 9 to 11, 11 to 1, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, and 5 to 7. And each successive watch night, everyone shifts forward, so we all share the times. The watch persons are given suggestions to use one or more means of monitoring the fire situation. And when going off duty, each watch person checks with the replacement and does a shift change. If there is a detection of a fire emergency, the watch person broadcasts the warning to the neighborhood, hopefully waking everybody up at night to rally and take action. Now, we do have a few households in that area that don't have these radios. So for them, we've implemented a buddy system. Before each watch, we put out a PDF with information on it. This is the top of the PDF here, which has the schedule, the time slots, the individuals in the time slots and their contact information, along with a reminder to do a shift change with the next person when you go off duty. The rest of the form has our suggestions as to using one or more of these suggestions when going on watch to monitor the situation. So we suggest definitely Ready Nevada County dashboard, especially the fire map page and the Twitter feed. Some of them like to listen to KVMR 89.5 FM. We do recommend that. For our younger participants, they like Twitter a lot. So we have 2 Twitter recommendations for them with all the pertinent information: Office of Emergency Services and Ubinet. Now, here's where Greencastle Peak is important, because we have the radio station that no one's ever heard of, KYRR 93.3 FM. And it's an FCC emergency broadcast station located on that peak, has a tremendous view of Yuba River Canyon and Washington Ridge and part of Little Rock Creek Canyon. The station runs 24/7, So we provide the watch people with the phone number of the broadcast booth. We can see what they can't see. And that is the south side of Sailor Flat Ridge and the rest of Little Rock Creek Canyon that they can't see. So together, these two entities have a really good view of the surrounding area. We also recommend that the watch people go outside every once in a while, take a look-see around and see if there's any, or is there any smoke in the air. Now, some of the watch persons do have scanners. So for them, we recommend 4 frequencies: CDF, Nevada County Fire, the Air Attack Base, and the Sheriff. For people who don't have scanners, but would like to use one, we found a website called broadcastify.com. And we gave them the instructions as to how to tune in Nevada County Public Safety West. So you get a scanner over your computer and all the messages come to you. So we are really very happy with this system. We've been running it since 2019. We feel that it's paid for itself already, especially since we found other applications for it. Since we're so high up in elevation, we have a snow removal team. In the winter now, when we have snowstorms and snow removal is active, the team uses it to talk among themselves and to talk to drivers who are out on the road trying to go out or come in. And there was one case last year where one of the residents lost a tire chain on Lightening Tree Hill and was able to call for help. So that's North Cooper Radio. If you have any quick questions, we're available for that. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to Scott.
Thanks, Louise. That was fantastic. We do have a couple questions in the chat. One is if you'll be able to post this presentation. With your permission, we'll get that linked on our website if that's okay with you.
That's perfectly fine.
Fantastic. Another question, how many total residents do you have involved? So I'm not sure how to interpret that. If can you tell us how many people live in what you would call that area, and then how many are actually involved volunteering in some way in your system?
You know, I can't account for the number of residents, but I think as far as households are concerned, we probably have anywhere from 35 to 40.
That's great. And just again, as a sense of some of these community organizers on our call today, look at their own communities. Is that, you know, just again, approximately, did you get 35 or 40 out of 50 involved? Like, is it that involved, or is it more like 35 out of 40 or 40 out of a few hundred?
Currently, we probably have about 30.
Got it. Got it. That's great. All right. Any other questions for Louise while we got her queued up here?
It's very impressive. I think congratulations to you and your neighbors on that system.
Thank you.
Yeah, great work out there. So again, we're moving from complexity of just a simple buddy system or safety pod to, you know, some fairly inexpensive radios on Amazon to, you know, what is a very well orchestrated system up there that Louise just shared with us. And now we're actually going to go to the town of Washington. So I'm queuing up the map here. Mike, if you're out there and you want to start to unmute, we'll get you going here in a minute. So now moving from, again, Washington Ridge to the town of Washington, I'm pretty sure you all know where we're talking about, but just to be clear, you know, leaving Nevada City, cruising up Highway 20, and then the town of Washington has some unique stuff going on, and on the phone. You out there, Mike? Mike, if you're out there, I think you're muted. We still got nothing, Mike. I got
How about
a
now?
message. Yeah.
Okay, apparently I hit the magic number.
Yeah, you win.
All right, well, I apologize that I can't compete with some of the presentations before. Dealing with communications issues here in the town of Washington transcends just telephone, but everything we can think of.
Don't worry, Mike. I'm actually sharing an amazing photo of you and your facial hair that puts my beard to shame right now. So don't worry. They all have a visual of you in front of Rescue 60.
All right, thank you, Scott. Probably not my most flattering shot. So, to paint a little bit of a picture, the issues here in Washington stem from our remote location partly, and limited ingress and egress, and almost non-existent communications. So the town itself is roughly 160 residents, but on a summer weekend, we can have 1,500 to 2,000 visitors here in the canyon as well. And that has posed some substantial hurdles to try and deal with in an emergency situation. There's no cell coverage anywhere around here, and most of our visitors are dumbfounded by that concept. So that pretty much negated a lot of the other communication systems that are out there, such as texting and code red and other types of systems. So one of our local residents apparently has taken a lesson that a lot of us have learned, and he actually started putting together a radio system like I've heard of some of the others doing. And again, he went with the family radio system frequency and using inexpensive radios off of Amazon and getting donations for people who couldn't afford them, and he's been able to outfit about 80 radios throughout the canyon. And we went with FRS Channel 9 kind of as a nod to the old CB Emergency Channel 9. And the other reason we went with that is because with enough communications to our visitors, many of them are here with OHV type equipment and are using FRS radios to communicate between themselves already. That system's been in effect basically for a year. We're still working on education and getting that word out to more of our visitors. But so far this calendar year, those radios have been involved in 3 different fires that we dealt with. One of which actually we didn't have a location on, and a resident gave me the location over the FRS radio, cutting down our response time. So they're turning into a wonderful asset for the canyon. The other thing that we've been working on is kind of going back old school, and we've looked at ways of trying to get word out other than on radios, and we've reverted back to the 1940s era air raid sirens. And we had one on the firehouse. Unfortunately, it was in poor mechanical repair, and we were trying to find a way to come up with $800 to have it rebuilt. And to paint a picture about our little volunteer fire department down here, my operating budget for this fiscal year is $15,500. So there's not a whole lot of fat on that pig. So when I brought that to my board of directors, they of course said that they didn't have the money either. So that evening in the hotel cafe, I was talking with one of my board members who happens to own the cafe and the hotel, and she said, "We've got to find that money." And so she announced that the hotel would come up with $200. And she turned to one of the other board members, who's also a business owner, and said, "Match it." And so suddenly we had $400. And to find the last $400, she grabbed my ball cap and headed off into the bar, came back with my cap full of cash, handed it to me, and said, "Fix the siren." So gave me a little bit more faith in humanity after that day. Since then, we had a resident text me a picture of another siren that he had found on Craigslist or Amazon Marketplace or Facebook Marketplace or something, and said, "Is this what you're looking for?" I said, "Yes." The next day, it showed up in my driveway. So currently, we have 2 sirens, and it doesn't quite cover the whole canyon, but one on the firehouse alerts everybody in the downtown section, so to speak. And the second one we're mounting on our water filter plant, which is 3 miles upriver, which will cover Golden Court's picnic area, which is a large U.S. Forest Service day use area that draws 200 to 300 people on a summer weekend. Working with our Firewise committee here, between the Fire Department and Firewise committee, we've been able to secure a couple of small grants, and that's going to be able to allow those sirens to be wired so that they will be controlled by the Grass Valley Emergency Command Center, so that myself or whoever's the incident commander out here doesn't have to divert resources, simply picks up the radio and says, evacuate this zone or that zone, working with the Zone Haven program, and the dispatcher reaches over, hits a couple of buttons, and the siren's sound. The other part of that grant is going to fund signage. So we have 2 private campgrounds and a couple of common popular locations in the canyon. They're going to get large information type signage explaining to people that are visiting what the sound of the siren means, and identifying the 4 routes in and out of the canyon, one of which is paved and the other 3 are less known, and we're going to identify those with a symbol of some sort. We haven't decided yet, a gold star or red triangle or whatever, so that sheriff's deputies or other first responders can tell the visitors, follow the gold stars, for example. And every quarter mile on those roads, we'll have small signs mounted to trees so that they can follow those and get out of the canyon. So that's kind of what we've been working on, and takes a lot of diligence to drop these grants, but it's certainly worthwhile.
That's good stuff, Mike. We really appreciate you sharing. I think, again, a couple good takeaways that I heard there was, first of all, just the willingness to get the job done. The owner of the cafe and hotel there just, literally taking the hat off your head, drumming up a few $100 and, bringing the community together and thinking about your guests, knowing that your population goes from 160 to a couple of thousand on the weekends, I think is great. Radios was another theme I heard that came up, a recurring theme from our communities tonight. And then as far as the sirens go, I know there is a bit of, there's perhaps some legal requirements there, but I don't see any reason why air horns or other loud things couldn't be used in our more urban and suburban areas here west of you, down the slope here. Anything else you want to share with our crowd here today?
Oh, no, that's about it. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks so much for the time, and thanks for the hassle. I know it was a pain in the butt on the call here today from where you're at, so we really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your story.
Well, it's worth it, and hopefully Elon Musk can help us out down here with some better internet soon. Starlink,
it's on the way. You in search and rescue when we're out on your side of the woods. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, he's already got my deposit.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, take care, Mike. All right. Again, more good ideas. Take what you can, implement what you can in your own neighborhoods. Our last speaker for our educational component of the evening, kicking it back to Paul Cummings from OES. Paul, what do you got for us for the more official side of the early warning systems?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I learned a lot. Again, I'm always bragging about this community. Everyone here is very engaged. You're trying to innovate, which is awesome, to get around some of the telecommunications challenges we have in this high fire threat community. So I applaud the buddy system. I think that's great. The text message chains, checking in on each other. I like that some of you are rehearsing evac plans. I did want to mention hand crank radios. I recommend everybody gets a hand crank radio. They're also solar powered to put in your go bag as a tertiary means of communication. One last thing I did want to touch on before I jump into the code red is that this county search and rescue team does have a satellite telecommunications device that is strictly used for supporting the first responders in an area. But I just think that that should add comfort to our residents, knowing that if there's a big fire and there's PSPS and we're having all the normal telecommunications challenges, that our first responders have a tool that communicates through satellites to push and pull information to enhance communications during a big wildfire response. I just want to throw that out there. So I'm going to try to go kind of quick. I'll just zip through an overview of the code red system and the iPause system, which some of you may have not heard of. So many of you are signed up for Code Red. About 35% of our community are signed up for Code Red. Code Red is used by the entire county, but in the town of Truckee, they are using Nixle. So, if you're going to be up that way, sign up for Nixle. I sign up for Nixle. But this is essentially an opt-in system. So you have to, volunteer to be part of this system. If you signed up, you should get a text, a voicemail, and a phone call. I do recommend that you set up a managed account. You can do that on our website, readynevadacounty.org, to make sure that you actually have ownership of your information. If you sign up through 211 and you have to change something, you have to call 211 to make that change. So anyway, just put that out there. Messages can be sent out to the public. So where does the message originate? I'll just quickly talk through a scenario. Somebody dials 911, there's a fire, the law and the fire folks show up and they establish the unified command. They determine in their conversations that a portion of our community needs to be evacuated. They are under threat based on the behavior of the fire. A decision will be made to evacuate a group of people. In the past, they might have said, hey, from this road to this road, this wide, we're going to evacuate. Well, now we have the zone-based evacuation system, Zone Haven, so they're going to choose by zone, but essentially they're going to choose to evacuate, certain folks. We then, a deputy in the field can actually send that code red message by zone or, based on just a drawing up with his finger on his phone on an app. And then that's what happened with the Jones fire. So they started sending out evacuations in the field. Our office quickly stood up, Lieutenant Jacobs and I, for the Jones fire, just as an example, and we got on our computers, and then we have a little more fidelity, and then we can start sending code red messages from our PC. So these messages can be sent by PC, they can be sent by app, and they're being sent by people who have specialized training and logins to be able to send those messages. So that's going to be Grass Valley PD and Truckee PD, and the Nevada County Sheriff's Office and our fire partners. All are working together to get these messages out to all of you. Code Red has automatic Spanish translation, so that's good to know. If you've signed up for Code Red in Spanish, you'll get those messages translated in Spanish automatically. We can put links in our Code Red message, and so we did that for the dashboard, and so expect to see that again. When we send messages via Code Red, so sometimes you might say, well, I didn't get the message, or I went to pick up and then I hung up too quickly and I didn't hear it. You can always go to the dashboard and look on the side, on that right side, and there's a Twitter tab, and then there's a Code Red tab. And anytime we send out a public Code Red message, you should be able to go there and see the message. So if there's a string of recurring Code Red messages, because we're just sending a bunch of Code Reds, you can go there and you can read the message and see what was in there and see if it affected you in your zone. We can also push messages out on Facebook and Twitter, which we did do that last year a couple of times. We just have to be very specific in our message, because now that message is going further than that mapped area. It's actually going to like anybody who subscribes to that channel. So we would have to be very specific about that message and what's in there. So for the Jones fire, we sent like 20 Code Red messages or something like that. We evacuated close to 5,000 people, and then another 10,000 or so people got the evacuation warning order, probably many of you on this call. We realize that Code Red is not perfect, right? Code Red is dependent on the telecommunications system, which in our community is not as strong as it should be or could be, right? So we do have a statistics feature in Code Red, so we can actually go back in and look and see how successful was that message. So when we sent that Code Red message to 10,000 people, we can actually, because Code Red is having a two-way conversation through the telecommunications network to your phone, it will tell us how many people picked up the phone live, how many text messages were sent, how many people did it just get the operator intercept, the tritone. And depending on the success rate of that message, Code Red will then automatically resend that message out to try to connect with all those non-connects. So you should have some confidence in knowing that Code Red is going to try to keep going until it successfully reaches you. But again, when we're sending out 15,000 phone calls over a 15-minute period, again, and it doesn't happen all at once. It has to meter those out because it has to work through the phone infrastructure. So things don't happen as fast as you might think, and they can be encumbered at times. So, but we're monitoring in the background to make sure that the call was successful, and then we'll send something out again if we don't have confidence in it. So when you see the message, it's going to have, who the agency was. It's going to say Nevada County Office of Emergency Services. It's going to have the threat, the location, and then we'll have the zone information in there now as well. So that was a really fast overview of Code Red. I do want to touch on one other system real quick that's called the iPause system that we use. We don't talk about it a whole lot, but some of us, you have to have special training and permissions to use this system, but iPause stands for the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. And that does let us send a message similar to Code Red over the wireless emergency alerting network. So we can actually ping your cell phone with a message. And I think many of us have seen like an Amber Alert pop up on our phone. We actually did use this during when COVID lockdown first started. So all of you probably got a very loud beep and a weird buzz and you said, what's my phone doing? And there was a message there that said, Nevada County's been put under, I think it was a shelter in place. But we initiate those messages in our office, and we can do that for a wildfire as well. And we did that for the Jones Fire for some areas. Also part of that integrated public alert and warning system is the emergency alerting system. So that's where you get the tone on the radio. You've heard that tone before, where it breaks into radio transmissions. And then there's a pre-recorded message that we make in our office, and we'll get that message in Spanish and in English. We'll have our team translate it. We record it, we put it in the system, and I do it from my PC, and then it sends it out. And then the radio stations pick that up, and then they start to play it. And depending on the duration that I've set, they'll play that message over a few hours, or shorter than that, longer than that. Same thing for scrolling text on your screen. You'll get that scrolling text on the bottom of your screen that might say, Nevada County, this is the Nevada County Office of Emergency Services. There's a fire in the Jones Bar area, moving south. These zones have been evacuated. We're going to put specific information in there. We do have to do Spanish translation for that, and I think I mentioned that. The last thing I'll say is that we know that with public safety power shutoffs, that only exacerbates the problem of trying to get a message out through all these mediums, whether it's TV, radio, social media, phones. So while these are tools, they are tools, in a tool bag that's full of tools. So I don't want to go into all the other tools. I think some of them have been mentioned, and I think some of them we're going to save for other meetings. Code Red is not a silver bullet. It is one of the things that we will use to try to notify you. And we're going to do our best to make sure that that message gets through to you, but it can sometimes be challenged again by our infrastructure and the conditions at hand. Hopefully that was, I think, what the group was looking for, and I can take questions.
Cool. Really appreciate it, Paul. We have a couple in the chat I want to bring to your attention. The first, I think I heard it earlier, but what percentage of the county has signed up for Code Red?
I think it's like 30 or 35%. I'd have to go back and look. We get those statistics monthly. So.
Fantastic, thanks. And then you would also reference that, infrastructure in Nevada County, isn't maybe as great as the bigger cities as to be expected here in the foothills. But does the county or the state or anywhere in between have any leverage with, the Comcasts and the cell providers of the world to get them to kind of up their game here and help us specifically in emergencies?
Yeah, that is a really great question that I could probably spend 30 minutes talking about. But a few months ago, I actually went down and I advocated to our legislators for the state around this concern, the challenge that rural communities have around telecommunications. I let them know what happened, during the Jones Fire and some of the other incidents that we've had, and how one cell phone tower going down could be that one lifeline for an entire community, right? That's all they have. And so it's really important for our legislators to make sure that they're doing their part to lean on these telecommunications providers, especially with things like VoIP now, right? Some people aren't providing landline anymore. They're just giving you a VoIP, voice over IP. So it's an internet phone. That they must maintain those systems, especially during these red flag days. And if those systems are degraded in any way, there's actual legislation that does require them to notify our office, the sheriff's office, the dispatch office. And so we are working hard through Cal OES and through the state, other state agencies to make sure that those telecoms do provide those services. I actually have points of contact with each of the telecoms, AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, and I'm bugging them. I am being your advocate, and I'm saying, hey, what's been happening over the last couple of years has not been acceptable, and we got to make it better. So there's only so much we can do, but I will say that we're working really hard to try to improve that in our community.
That's great. Thanks for getting out there and beating the drum on our behalf, Paul. We do appreciate it. Another couple questions with Code Red. One, is the system tied to things like potential dam failure, like the big one at Scott's Flat? And then follow-up or separate, but similar question: in terms of getting data, does the Code Red message include location of fire to help with the direction of evacuation?
Yeah, the Code Red message is really created by our office, but we follow a FEMA protocol. So there's the psychologists at FEMA have determined that there's a way you want that information to come out in a specific order. And so we will use that FEMA methodology of message format, which does include the location. We are character limited though, to some degree, especially when we're using the wireless emergency alerting system. So there's some messages that are going to be shorter, some will be longer, depending on the system that we're using and how we're sending it, and what kind of phone you have. I don't want to go too far into those details. And what was the second part of the question, Scott? Sorry, I might have missed it.
Well, there was the, is it tied to, the dam failure, and then will it give you directions and things like that?
Yeah. So the direction is going to be depending on what information we have. To be honest, though, that's pretty variable, right? Winds could change. I could put in the message that the fire is heading south, but then what if the wind directions change, and then you make decisions based on that? And then what we don't want to do is provide information that's so specific that you start making decisions based on that, and we put you in harm's way. You still have to follow law enforcement's instructions and know your own way out safely, and try to read the situation, right, and determine the safest way out. To the dam failure, there's no automatic system like if a dam fails, it's going to automatically send a Code Red. That's going to depend again on our communications with our partners like NID and other folks like that around articulating the threat to us, whether it be the sheriff's office or OES, and then we get that message out as quickly as we can. But yes, that tool is used for other things other than wildfire.
Fantastic. So we have a couple other questions that I'm going to bring up in a moment here related to the general community forum, but I do want to kind of close the loop on our guest speakers tonight, but Paul, stay close. The main theme of tonight was early warning systems. We're going to have a whole separate meeting related to evacuation where we're going to answer a lot of those questions. The main theme tonight for early warning systems is that, we do have a lot of amazing things in place here in the foothills, and we are way ahead of the curve relative to other counties and what are in place, but nothing is perfect and no system is certain. So having some redundancy and relying on things beyond the common infrastructure of cell phones, Code Red, government-driven things is a great idea. So having, that buddy system, that safety pod in place, whether you're relying on door knocking, handheld, crank FM radios, or some of the FRS, the family radio systems, the little handhelds that were really discussed tonight. Having that redundancy. In the safety world, we talk about a Swiss cheese model of safety. And if you think that, the many different layers, the many different slices of Swiss cheese each have a hole. And when there is a hole and Verizon tower is the first thing that's burnt to the ground, and the hole is presented by that tower being burnt to a crisp right away, you know, that's okay as long as there is another layer of safety behind it, another slice there that doesn't have a hole in it, so that, you know, your neighbor who is on safety watch, or who is the light sleeper, or who does have the CB radio frequency is there to help and then communicate with the radio. So my challenge to everyone here is not to, you know, start a round-the-clock night watch in your neighborhood or anything specific, but just take a look at your own safety systems and, you know, try to find some redundancy and put some redundancy in the system so you're not reliant and dependent on any one system. So please take that away tonight. All right, we have time for just a couple of quick questions here. So one thing that keeps coming up repeatedly that I'm going to address is putting pressure on Comcast and the coalition. Yes, the coalition can do it, and every meeting I ask for volunteers for project management, and every meeting I get exactly 0 responses. So you heard from Paul that he's doing some great work at a county level, working through the state and putting pressure on providers. I don't know if Bob, if you're unmuted, but could you or anyone remind me of the budget of the coalition and how many paid employees we have? I see Jeff giggling uncontrollably. Sorry, say that again, Susan.
Our budget is 0. We are all volunteers.
Got it. And how many full-time employees do we have?
0.
Yeah.
And of those 0, how many have experience in lobbying?
Yeah.
Never mind. That's bad math.
Nobody's going to admit to it.
Yeah, none that would admit to it. Yeah. So, well, I appreciate this request we get repeatedly month after month of what are we doing to demand Verizon install new towers, and what are we doing to demand that PG&E bury all of their lines. I'm just going to be honest and hopefully put this to bed. Nothing. We are doing nothing because we can do nothing. But do take comfort in knowing that, again, Paul and your county supervisors are out there working diligently behind the scenes with some of your municipal leaders within the city of Grass Valley and the city of Nevada City to get some of that done. And hopefully what you heard from Paul was good news, that there are things being shared. And if you haven't clicked on the link, I'm not giving credit where credit is due. Denise put a link that she got from her cellular provider that they are working to do things. And for those of you familiar with the original Santa Rosa story and what happened with cellular phones, know that situation won't happen again, and that there has been some progress made with AT&T and Verizon as the big players in NorCal. I do need to move a little bit quickly, just out of respect for people's time. Paul, I'm going to throw this one to you if we got a quick answer. Can Code Red be used for a test evacuation for certain communities?
We do a monthly test, we do a yearly test for the entire county in August. So we're going to really reserve it for that. If we're doing a special event like an exercise where we're partnering with CAL FIRE and other agencies, we will do a small scale Code Red message to that community as part of that exercise, but we really try to limit that.
Cool. Thanks so much, Paul. And then question, how does Code Red utilize Zone Haven? Paul, correct me, I'm going to throw out a quick answer. Zone Haven is a mapping tool and a simulation tool. Does a great job of simulating traffic flows, things of that nature. Code Red is the communications tool to get that data out to you. So they work together but are different, and the people who are pressing the buttons on Code Red will be utilizing Zone Haven, and you're going to get a lot more data on that. I don't know if it's next month or the month after, but I see Lieutenant Jacobs lurking in the background here without his video on. I don't know if you want to speak to that, but we're going to get LT in front of everyone along with Paul and the rest of their team to share you in great detail how Zone Haven will be rolled out.
And I'll just say quickly, Scott, we're going to send messages by zone. So that's what we'll be, that's how the messages will go out. People will be evacuated and messaged by the zone they live in.
Cool.
I think that's part of our June presentation, Scott, for evacuation.
Fantastic. fantastic. So yeah, we'll be talking about situational awareness and evacuations coming up soon. So anything else, maybe one last question? Nothing? All right. So really want to thank our speakers tonight for taking the time and all the effort you put into making our community a safer place. And sharing those stories here tonight. It was highly informative. I have a dozen bullet points of things I want to follow up for myself, and I hope the rest of you on this call do as well. Before we close, though, before you guys log off, I feel like something's missing here on May 4th. Jeff, would our tech guru and the guy with the photo of Yoda lurking over his shoulder, again, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Is there anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, what did Obi-Wan say to Luke at the dinner table?
I don't know. What did he say to Luke at the dinner table?
Use the forks, Luke.
Nice.
No, we can
All
all
right.
do dinner.
So with that, Jeff, do you want to, would you like to close it down officially here and share the words with everyone here?
May the fourth be with you, right?
All right. Thanks, everyone. With that, we're going to roll credits. That's for you, Jeff. All right. Thanks, everyone.